So I'm a capitalist, but I believe that any perversion of the system, or anything that is too far unregulated, or monopolies within the system, mess up the whole design. So I think authenticity isn't always the way that we think it is. Authenticity can absolutely be in the way that it's like, it just sucks. It's just like, so I trying to think of like another example. Like, you don't go to Five Guys, which is like a big burger joint in the United States. Like, you don't go to Five Guys thinking that you're going to get a healthy meal.
Yeah.
Like, it is absolutely authentic in its way that like you go there expecting to eat something that is like 2,000 calories. I do believe that I believe that the majority of the world is starting to wake up to the fact that flooding is happening more often, wildfires are happening more often, extreme weather is happening, and like, whether we like it or not, like, the effects that we're having in terms of producing too much CO2 is just, it's out of control, right? And like, I do believe that humans are quite resilient, and I also believe that the power of all of us collectively working towards something is pretty monumental, and we can do amazing things.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Creekcast. Back again with a very special guest this time around. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and your name.
Absolutely. So my name is Dave Simnick. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Soapbox. So we sell shampoo, conditioner, body wash, liquid hand soap, as well as a bunch of other natural clean ingredient products, all over the United States. We also sell in Mexico and Sally Beauty. But long story short is the whole reason we exist is to donate a bar of soap to someone in need, whether it be in the United States, whether it be in any of the 65 countries that we have the privilege and pleasure of working in around the world. And we do that because we believe that you don't have to be a millionaire or billionaire to be a philanthropist, that you can help those in need through just changing the shampoo you buy or the body wash you buy or the liquid hand soap you buy. And that's why we make the products that we do. And then we also own 3 other brands, and we're just incredibly excited about the growth and the opportunities in front of us.
Yeah, that's amazing. We'll get to know you a little better and your company in just a bit. Right now, we're going to our little ad break just to make sure we don't get any interruptions throughout this episode, so we can just go full in. So we'll see you in 3 seconds. Bye.
Again, specific to you, YouTube. You guys are the guys, you know? You don't get Anchor, you get Surfshark. What's Surfshark? The #1 VPN. Boom. Absolutely beautiful. Is it affordable? Yes, especially with our 80% discount. What else? Oh yeah, it's also super... 3, 2, 1. Yo, what's up? Welcome back. You people on YouTube, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. A lot of effort goes into this. And quick little ad break, you don't get Anchor, you get Surfshark. What is Surfshark? The #1 VPN. No, we are not just told to say this. It is the #1 VPN. And by the way, please, come on, get it. It is affordable. It is completely affordable, especially with an 80% discount, you know what I'm saying? And what else? I mean, it keeps your privacy safe. Keeps all your data, your information, and it doesn't slow down the content like some other VPNs. It ain't like that, It's voted as one of the best VPNs, if not the best. So come on, get it. Do it for us, Surfshark, it's in our hearts because they accepted us and we can help. So please, a little bit goes a long way. Surfshark is #1. You're gonna get a blast. You're gonna watch content from all over the world. Do it and enjoy the content. Please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed that little ad break. So now we're gonna get to the questions and get to know you a bit better. So kind of starting off, you mentioned Soapbox. what, you know, what really was the story to start Soapbox? I mean, we understand that it's to help people, and that's kind of the goal, to donate to people in need. But what motivated you at the start of your business journey?
Yeah, so it's an excellent question. The whole reason that we exist is to provide great products that people fall in love with, and then through each and every purchase, they're able to donate to someone in need. So we donate. We have donated over 22 million bars to local homeless shelters and food pantries, and we have the privilege of working in over 65 countries around the world. We actually don't donate soap from the United States in the areas that we have the privilege of working in. When we're talking about international partners that we work with, we actually work with those partners to create that soap and or recycle that soap within the community. And the reason we do that is, like, let's say you're a soap maker in northern India. The last thing that you want is someone popping out of a shipping container with like 20,000, 40,000 bars of soap, because then I just put you out of a job, and more importantly, I just told the whole community to wait until some awkward white guy like me shows up and gives it to you for free. So we like to switch around one for one, and how we think about that, and how we execute on that aid. But I'd say the other thing is that, you know, we care very deeply about creating something that people love by itself. So, you know, if Soapbox did not have a mission, would people still buy it? And I think without a doubt they would, because what we found out over the years is that while the aid mission is what differentiates us, it's not the reason why people buy us. The reason why people buy us again and again and again is because we make a superior product. So I think for what we want to do and where we want to grow, we definitely want to be a household name brand. We want to gain as much market share as possible. The reason why I'm doing this is because I genuinely believe that the foundational principles of helping people empower themselves is really just getting access to the fundamentals. So have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? It's often overstated and quite cliche, but it's incredibly true, right? You're not thinking about education if you're starving. You're not thinking about, you know, sending your kids to college if you don't have a house, right? So there's certain fundamentals that need to be in place in order for individuals to lift themselves and their communities out of poverty, and that's what I really like to focus on. And then depending on the area that we're working in, you know, in a lot of the developed countries that we have the privilege of sponsoring and helping through hygiene and access to proper hygiene, homeless populations, especially with shower programs through homeless shelters. I mean, they just use so much soap, and we love picking up the tab for that. And we're not the people making that change. It's our customers who are making that change. We're just the conduit between making a great product and our customers actually buying that product. They're the people that are making the difference. We're just the facilitator. So that has always been the mission of Soapbox since day one. In a previous life, I used to work for the United States Agency for International Development. I wanted to change the way that we were doing a lot of our health and hygiene work, and that was the inspiration for Soapbox. So my best friend and I started 11 years ago. I started making soap in my kitchen, which was one heck of a, it was weird. Being like a 22-year-old, like, you know, Fight Club jokes and or, you know, Walter White jokes and Breaking Bad. Like, there definitely were a lot of, you know, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? So that's the reason we started. We acquired this brand. So we own Bushwick Kitchen. Bushwick Kitchen is a premium condiment and food brand. It's sold in Williams-Sonoma. It's sold in Sur La Table. It's sold in Crate and Barrel. It's also sold on Amazon and a bunch of other places throughout the United States. It makes no sense that a personal care company would own a food company if you think of us as a personal care company. So we're a CPG company, and our holding company is called Impact Driven Brands. Each and every one of our brands has 3 pillars: better ingredients, healthier ingredients, safer ingredients for families, for mothers, for kids, for everyone in between, some type of sustainability mission. So either using post-consumer recycled products, a part of our materials, completely removing plastics from the equation altogether. Something about like how is us creating more consumables in the world actually helping through sustainability? How are we being better steward with our earth? And then finally, the third one is a charitable give back. So, someone who is actually benefiting from the buyer-seller relationship who's not a part of that relationship. And each of our brands fulfill those three pillars, and it's incredibly exciting to work with this amazing team that we have here to build them.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, it kind of brought me back a lot to something that we've seen and heard a lot. Kind of going back to a person we had on in season 1, which if you're listening, Will, it was kind of the same ideology that, you don't have to be this massive company or this massive philanthropist to be able to help people out. And it's really a matter of how dedicated are you to actually, giving up certain things, which might be money or comfort or whatever, in order to realistically help people out in any way.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that caught my attention is that it's not only a product made to help people, but it's an actual genuine good product to start with. I think many people just try to make just a makeshift product that's kind of okay, and it doesn't compare to the big brands, and then try to make profit or try to help people with that. And that's not how it works. You need to have a standout that's product that can stand alone in it of itself, so you can help people. I think that's a very key detail that people need to understand, that you don't just wake up one day and I'm gonna help people and do the bare minimum effort to do it. You have to put blood, sweat, and tears to help other people, and I think that's something that needs more attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and apart from that, the fact that you kind of mentioned that it isn't just a personal hygiene company, that it's bigger than that, and the ambitions are bigger than that. It's to really kind of have that outreach. And I guess that kind of makes me wonder, how do you personally feel that authenticity in brands impacts the power that they hold?
I think it's huge. Well, so first off, echoing what both of you guys just said a second ago, I think that for us, it's the reason why we do what we do. If we were a CPG company without the missions that we had, or the beliefs that we have about those three pillars, I wouldn't be doing this. So to me, I look at this and say, time is precious, and how little we each are given, this tiny blue dot. So for me, I want to do things that empower other people to solve their own problems. Mm-hmm. That to me is living a life that's worth living. When it comes to authenticity with brands, I think each successive generation is better at sniffing out fraud and or posers. So authenticity is huge. I also and it was funny because I was, prior to coming on today, I was looking at your guys' episode on cancel culture, and, there's both good and bad with cancel culture, right? It's like, it's so quick that it really doesn't give someone the time to explain himself, and that, and I'm not defending anyone, but like, everyone makes mistakes, right? Like, the question is how do they own the mistake that they have, or the mistake that they made? But I think something that's really interesting about cancel culture is policing authenticity, right? Like, so it's not always about authenticity, but it also is just about, if you're doing something so heinous that Gen Z or the millennials or whoever just say, like, you know what, like, it's not worth having you be in culture and or have a mouthpiece or have influence or power or whatever it might be, and therefore you are canceled. I think that is the personification of people sniffing out and canceling something that isn't authentic.
Yeah.
Right. And it could be that, like Me Too movement and everything else is like, you have all these people in power that say that they care about women and say that they care about their rights. And yet it's found out that, they're sexually harassing them or taking advantage of them, or even worse. And that's not okay, period. Right. So like, in essence, to me, I think that the same thing happens with, the same thing happens with products. Like I feel like TikTok every week is going after a new brand
Yeah.
that, whatever it might be. And I totally expect us to one day have that happen to us.
Yeah.
I totally expect that there's going to be something. And the hard thing is that, so we're a competitor to them, but like OGX, right? So OGX is the number 3, number 2, depending which report you look at, biggest hair care brand in the United States.
Mhm.
They're currently right now there's a class action lawsuit against them using a preservative. That's a formaldehyde. It's a version of a formaldehyde. Now, formaldehyde, when you think about it, is a carcinogen, right? It stabilizes. Like you put dead bodies in for like formaldehyde, or you put organs or whatever that you want to basically preserve. Like, so not good stuff, right? Not stuff
Yeah.
that you want to have in your hair care. But the thing is that the class action lawsuit is just full of, I won't swear, but it's not accurate.
I mean,
It's
you can. It's okay.
Well, no, it's straight up BS, because the class action lawsuit is it's not the proper chemistry. It's basically saying that like any type of alcohol that you see on the back of a label is not the type of alcohol you drink. Like there are various different versions of like what an alcohol molecule can look like. So long story short is there's this class action lawsuit happening against OGX. TikTok picked that up and they're like, cancel OGX. And it's like, whoa. One, first off, you have a law firm that basically wants to just sue Johnson & Johnson because they can, and they think that Johnson & Johnson will pay a lot of money for this. But then TikTok is like, well, I don't want to buy the shampoo anymore because it has formaldehyde in it. And it's like, but it doesn't. And and the people who started this are just going after this company because they think they can get a lot of money from it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
not to interrupt, but yeah, it's a problem with mob mentality in general. It's just easy to hate something, like, oh damn, this is bad. Yeah, I hate it now.
Right.
I'm going to post about it. Yeah, cancel this and don't do your own research because that takes effort. And that's not a thing that many people can put into their lives. So just focusing on just horrible things that happen, it's easier than actually seeing through what's actually happening. And I think that's the main problem with the whole cancel culture thing. Because, I mean, most of the time they don't have the power to cancel an entire company. But it's more of if the company has its own market audience and that market audience no longer lines up with the values of the company, then you're done, because that's your target.
Right.
That's where the money comes from. Because we like to pretend that all things that we do are just 100% no profit and the whole things can float on its own, but it's not true. I mean, as much as people hate it, money does play a really big part on just companies in general. So ignoring that is not a very wise thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I also think that kind of relating back to the topic of authenticity in a way, money to a certain extent obviously drives everything. And if you're a company who either decides to not use that money to help people, it's going to hinder you. And if you do, it'll give you a plus, but you kind of have to be bulletproof in a way, which is impossible to a certain extent. Like it's impossible to be perfect always. And we've had this discussion a lot where you see companies that may not even necessarily be faking it, but they aren't bulletproof because it isn't easy to be bulletproof in that sense. And it ends up going against them that they're trying to help people. And so, yeah, cancel culture ends up kind of going for those instead of the ones who are actually behind the scenes doing the damage.
Well, it's funny. In a different life, I was asked to give a TEDx on authenticity, so it's funny that you're bringing this up.
Oh.
And you guys might already know this, but half of it's good, half of it's not good.
Yeah.
Just tell you right don't watch the whole thing. But the long story short is I made some examples of how like Spirit Airlines is awful. Like flying on Spirit, you just feel like you're cattle. But they're incredibly authentic. Like that authenticity is everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Like customers will fly on Spirit and Frontier because they know what they're getting. Like it's just like it, and they even advertise. They're like, "This is the bear fare. Like you're going to be paying for an absolute awful experience, but you're going to pay next to nothing to fly with them." So, you know, it's. I think the thing is that authenticity isn't usually in just one direction in terms of good companies doing good things that, you know, like really, you know, stand for certain ideals that we like to talk about in business books or case studies. Like it also goes for like, there are certain companies out there that are incredibly authentic. They just suck. Right. So like one of the reasons why Spirit has one of the biggest profit margins out of any of the airlines is because they make their customers pay for everything. Like it's like, hey, you want a water? That's a couple dollars. You want to take a piece of baggage on here? That's a couple extra dollars. You want to like upgrade your seat? Absolutely, you're paying for that, right?
Yeah.
So I think authenticity isn't always the way that we think it is. Authenticity can absolutely be in the way that's like, it just sucks. It's just like, so I trying to think of like another example. Like you don't go to Five Guys, which is like a big burger joint in the United States. Like you don't go to Five Guys thinking that you're going to get a healthy meal.
Yeah.
Like it is absolutely authentic in its way that like you go there expecting to eat something that is like 2,000 calories and you're okay with it because like there was never a representation that they were going to try to do something that was healthy.
You know, you're going there to clog your arteries, basically.
Right. Exactly. It's like you are going to have an amazing meal, but then you're going to feel really bad about it for the next like day or two. But I think
there's nothing wrong about it because it's not like you were advertised something else. They're transparent about what they're selling.
I think, you know, it's I think really good brand managers, really good people who understand brand and branding, understand not only the capabilities and potential of a brand, but more importantly, the limitations of the brand.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's also brands can change over time, right? Like look at Kia. So like Kia Motors came into the United States and they were like, 10-year, 100,000 mile, or it was some ridiculous warranty where like, essentially what they were saying to customers is, hey, you don't trust this, but it doesn't matter because like you get a warranty the whole time you drive this car. And even if, you know, wheels are falling off, like you can still bring it back and we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Right. And that essentially that is incredibly authentic because you're meeting the customer where the customer believes that your product is at. So I just think brands get in trouble when they try to be something that they're not. And or try to be like if, you know, Spirit came out with a luxury, wildly nice first class, like I think a lot of people would be really tripped up about that because they're like, that's not what the brand means to me. And that's like, you're also now trying to train a consumer where the consumer's just not ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you already have a certain group of people and target that, you know, they're expecting what they're getting, which is cheap and not good experiences. So you know that at the end of the day, if you keep giving them that, you know, they have something reliable that they can trust on. And yeah, I mean, that kind of leads to what you started off with, you know, that the customer really makes the thing that the brand wants to make happen. You know, it's not the brand that's doing it. They're just the motor to kind of drive the path, but the customer is the one with the decision at the end.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be as transparent as possible with your brand. If you're actually being genuine, if you're not, then good luck with that. But yeah, I think that's a big takeaway is just that that's the thing that you can't buy is authenticity.
Yeah.
People will know, they just know when you're just like full of crap or you're actually being genuine. We actually talked about this when it was Pride Month. All these big companies just changed their logo and acted that they were yeah, gay and stuff. Whoa. And just the second Pride Month was over, that the microsecond it was over, then we're back to normal, as it never really happened. And that leaves a really bad taste on customers' mouths, because they're like, oh, yeah, you're just doing this for clout. You're just trying to appeal to and just pander to another audience that either doesn't really care or care and know that you're full of crap.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that we here in the Creekcast, we try to be as authentic as possible. We don't try to pretend that we know what we're talking about. It's pretty clear when we do and when we don't. So that's why we have so many guests, as many guests as possible, because there's guests like you that know perfectly what you're talking about and bring us to just educate us and the audience. So I think we came for full circle on this one.
Well, there are many topics that I have no clue what I'm talking about, and I'm pretty sure we've touched on some of them today. So I definitely would not give myself that much credit. We have an amazing team here, and I just ensure that they get coffee. So that is one of my number one priorities, is just make sure we have a well caffeinated team. I think brands have a really important role to play. And I think what's also really interesting is that brands are playing a more active role with what in the United States, with a lot of brands in Georgia did when Georgia enacted that voting law, with Delta and Coca-Cola, with how vocal Nike has been on a wide range of other issues. It is, for the longest time, there's been a belief that brands shouldn't get political.
Yeah.
And I think we've now hit a certain point where brands can't afford not to be political.
Exactly.
And actually come out and say who they are and who they aren't. And it is really interesting because, like, you have coffee brands like Starbucks, which are very progressive, and then you have coffee brands like Black Rifle Coffee, which is definitely more conservative. So it is super interesting. And then, the positions that brands believe that they can take a stand on, and the type of positions that they believe that it's too dangerous to take a stand on, they're pretty significant and far-ranging.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, right? How just a few years ago, brands were just that. It's like, oh, we sell a product. If you like it, you buy it. If you don't, then you don't. Now values have to be aligned. Now you don't buy from certain companies because they do a certain kind of practice that my values don't align with them, so you don't buy them. So that's where authenticity comes into play. Where we were talking about a few episodes ago about fast fashion and how some companies just use sweatshops, and you, as a customer, you have a certain kind of responsibility to make sure you buy from not necessarily the good guys, because I don't believe there's good or bad guys when it comes to products. It's more of a who decides to do it in a more morally responsible way. So it's not only about the company being authentic, it's about you, the customer, being aware of what's going on. Right now, people really need to be aware of what and where you're buying from. It's really weird how come to this, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I think it's okay I think it's pretty good that customers are aware of what and why they're buying, but it's just different, I would say, of how it was.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a matter of that. I think it's kind of not even gotten to that point to a certain degree, because we see companies like Apple or, as you mentioned, David, Nike. Nike has kind of put out the image that they are very progressive and that they stand for a lot of positive things. But, you know, being such a massive brand, they still, you know, it's impossible for them to really be sustainable or, you know, pay their workers well or do a lot of things that should kind of be required on the humanitarian side. And at the end of the day, they're kind of posing as, you know, we stand for this, and kind of fake, I guess it's fake, I don't know how to call it, just fake support in a way of causes that, you know, and on the paper they look good, but when you look what's behind it and where, you know, this shirt is coming from, it's like, okay, maybe you're not that reliable as a kind of voice to the people or to injustice.
I mean, it's just that we already talked about this, but just as a refresher, I think major, like these multi-billion big giants of companies, all of them have a major flaw in them because human rights and production don't necessarily mesh well together, because it's either you treat your workers right. It seems so. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's either you treat your workers right or you have a really outstanding product that's known worldwide. It's almost as it became the standard with these multi-billion companies, and it's kind of baffling since, let's say, Amazon, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest company right now, and they can't afford to pay their workers right. It's mind-blowing. It's like, it shouldn't be that hard. Like, the CEO, it's going to space.
Yeah, that's the important part. I mean, the workers don't need to get paid if we're going to space with Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, I think it was in an interview, like like Jeff Bezos was like, oh, and thanks to the workers for paying for this. It's like, dude, what?
Yeah, I can't defend Jeff Bezos and the things he said and or did not say. I will say this though, you know, I remember. So I'm a capitalist, but I believe that any perversion of the system, or anything that is too far unregulated, or monopolies within the system, mess up the whole design. So, you know, I remember one of my human rights professors in college, we were talking about the ethics of sweatshops, and you know, they were like, well, and this is the great thing about college, is that you can really drill down into a topic, and you can have some pretty vulnerable conversations about certain topics. So if you give me the latitude in order to actually talk about this, especially on a podcast, don't know why I've chosen the time and the place to talk about this, but here we go. I think what's interesting is that, like, no human should be absolutely taken advantage of, period, right? Like, we should not do that. But what is interesting is like, if you were not making anything beforehand, and you weren't making enough money to provide for your family, you know, within these communities around the world, when these manufacturing centers would come to them and basically put them through rural labor, and pay them, like, in our eyes, nothing, that the way that we view that is that's terrible and awful. And you basically took these jobs from, you know, country X, and you ship them to country Y, and you're paying them like less than $1 a day. Potentially, in that person's eyes, who's actually showing up to work at that sweatshop or manufacturing or whatever word you want to use, they're making $1 a day, whereas before they were making like 5 cents a day. So in their minds, they're like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Like, this is wonderful and great. So I do believe that workers should be protected. Workers should have the ability to form unions. Collective bargaining is a wonderful and amazing thing. I believe in all those things.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there is no coincidence that in the past 30, 40 years, we've seen the largest reduction in poverty in the human race in quite some time. And the reason we've seen that is because there's been an acceleration of the flattening of the earth, right? Not in the actual,
Yeah.
physical sense, but in the sense that like economies have become more integrated into each other, dependent on each other across borders. And obviously we're seeing the negative externality effects happen on the climate right now, which is a whole separate other conversation that we absolutely need to focus on. But like the numbers do not lie. It is stupid how many people have been lifted out of poverty as they've joined the world economy. So the thing that I think about a lot, and this doesn't really come into Soapbox because we make practically everything in the United States. We make everything with Bushwick in the United States. We make everything with Fresh Science in the United States. With Good Nest, we make it in a couple other countries, but we ensure that they're made in factories that have the right labor laws and treat their workers fairly. And I always really, I think back to that conversation and like, the funniest thing about this is my professor was like was a devout socialist, and like we went back and forth, and she took the capitalist opinion and I took the socialist opinion, and we just went back and forth about the ethics of sweatshop. And she was like, "You're taking a very imperialist view on this and saying like that you should improve their lot in life when they're just trying to improve their lot in life." And I'm just like, no, it's funny. Professor Cohen was absolutely amazing, and she's one of my favorite people of all time. But I think it's really interesting because, like, when you're a big company, and I can't believe I'm defending them because I'm a small company that competes with them day in, day out. Like, I feel bad for Nestle. Like, Nestle tries to do good. I know a bunch of the people there, right? Like, I know the person who's in charge of all their social impact, and like he travels the world, like checking and working and vetting all the different manufacturers that they work with. Like, you are just a massive open target for if any of the potential like thousands of partners that they work with are mistreating any of their team members or employees, and or mishandling waste or sewage or any byproducts of the manufacturing, like anything like that is a huge potential PR disaster. And like there's so much more that you need to like cover your ass than we do, right? Because for us, even though we're double digit millions in revenue, and thankfully we sell in over I think we're 200,000 points of distribution in the United States now in terms of all our products and where we sell. So hooray! But like we still have so much smaller of a liability footprint than all of these bigger guys. So I totally hear you, and I also think it's really interesting that like Nike's out here like putting all these like feel good progressive commercials out, and yet they're totally like underpaying what they should, right? Workers all over the world. But on the flip side, I'm guessing that those workers probably very much appreciate the fact that they're able to make a decent living within the countries that they operate in or work in, and that they're able to provide for their families.
Yeah, to have
right?
a job period. Yeah,
it's wild, right?
Yeah, a double-edged sword. Wow. I mean, we often go like we tend to be like, oh, capitalism is kind of trash in this podcast, but I think we don't go full out like that. Well, at least personally myself, I recognize that capitalism is the only system that genuinely works so far. I mean, I don't think there's a better system that I've seen. That may come from a place of ignorance, but what I've seen so far is that capitalism is the one that works the best. And we tend to see these huge multi-billion companies as just plain bad, because that's more or less what we tend to visualize big capitalist companies as, just big and greedy and just plain just evil. But we need to look at the bigger picture and what they give back to the community, not to defend them, because they're multi-billion companies. They don't need defending, especially from a podcast But it's just that we need to recognize the full picture. It's not that all small companies are good because they're small, or all big companies are bad because they're big. We need to recognize their actual actions and what they try to make good of their situation, and just generally recognize what the big picture represents. Not go
Yeah.
full on stereotypes and go like big bad, small good.
Well, so I think that's spot on. Tell you what, there is one way that I've always looked at democracy, and there's one way that I've always looked at capitalism, and that is young. You ever hear the quote, "Young men sue for war, old men sue for peace"?
Never.
No.
But
So
enlighten us.
basically, it's a comment about youth and energy and wisdom with age. And one of the things that I found, I'm in my early 30s, but the reason why I like democracies and capitalism is it inherently accepts that people are greedy, and it allows for humanity to live out its lesser angels, or it's there's this amazing quote by Abraham Lincoln where basically he's talking about his better angels versus his demons, and the idea is that like power will corrupt, and therefore democracies allow the people to vote out people who become more power centered, or like whatever your thoughts are on the previous American president, we get to vote that person out, right? Like whether he believes that he won or not, like the people have spoken and that guy's got to go. So when it comes to capitalism, it allows for all of these miniature wars and battles to happen without anyone dying, right? And like circa a millennia ago in the medieval age, like that was not the case. Like that was if the king of this piece of land really wanted to expand and grow his industry, and let's say he was in timber, and the king of this part was on that part of the timber, then people would die, right? And like we don't have that anymore. So like I think like to a degree we do, but like nowhere near the amount that. And I think the other thing is that like the press always has to sensationalize things, but if you just look at the hard numbers, we have the highest literacy that humanity has ever had. You have the least amount of people in poverty that humanity's ever had. Believe it or not, if you look at the news, you wouldn't believe this. We have the least amount of armed conflict that we have ever had as humanity.
Yeah, we've discussed this. Yeah,
but back in like the medieval ages, like if you like much smaller amount of humans living on the earth, but if you look at the percentage of how many people were in war every year, like it was insane.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not only medicine, but just in general. If you were 20, 18, you will go to war, and good luck to you, my friends. Just
we all have our teeth.
Yeah, we all have our teeth. That's actually mind blowing. But I mean, we tend to focus on the negatives. As human beings, we always we don't see what's good because that doesn't need fixing. We tend to focus on the bad, and then we go like, damn, this plant just plain sucks. I especially am victim to that. I tend to look at the negatives, and I'm like, this planet straight up sucks, which kind of does, but we need to look at the bigger picture and our whole history, not just right now the problems, because the problems still need fixing. Whether you agree with that or not, there's big things that need attention, but it's not nearly as bad as it was a few years ago. Yeah. Well, if you go into climate change and stuff, then we're like,
yeah, we're screwed. Yeah, on that part we're screwed.
Yeah, like it could have been better.
But I think so. Unfortunately, this is I have to get going relatively soon. But here's my belief. I'm a cautious optimist. I do believe that I believe that the majority of the world is starting to wake up to the fact that flooding is happening more often, wildfires are happening more often, extreme weather is happening, and like whether we like it or not, like the effects that we're having in terms of producing too much CO2 is just it's out of control, right?
Yeah.
And like I do believe that humans are quite resilient, and I also believe that the power of all of us collectively working towards something is pretty monumental, and we can do amazing things. That takes a lot of leadership. I do think I think humans are a lot more reactionary than we are proactive towards things, and unfortunately, things are probably going to get a little more worse before they get better. But I believe in us as a species. I really do. As the weirdest like send off on a podcast that you probably had, it was just like species us, like no, I think that there are many things on a daily basis that like you look at the world and you say all of these things could be better. But I believe that there are more people in the world trying to make it a better place than people who are trying to make it a worse place.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good wrap up. We usually do a big three, but I think we're
short on time.
We're short on time, and I think that's a really good wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of we like just like went snowballing through topics
we usually have an outline of what we want to ask and stuff.
Yeah, it went through the window this time.
That's out the window.
I'm like, you're like, Soap Man talks about capitalism.
And that's perfect. That's what we look
That's
for.
what we like. Yeah.
That's what we want. We don't want just a series of questions and getting a yes or no answer. We want a conversation, and that's what we got. I think this was a perfect and beautiful episode. One of my personal favorites.
I knew it would be.
I just like this conversation. It was pretty good. Loved everything about it. So thank you so much for being on this podcast. It was honest and genuine and transparent. Pleasure having you here. An authentic pleasure having you here.
And thanks for making the time. I know you've been very busy. So yeah, I mean, maybe one day you can come on and we can keep the conversation going and other topics, because it was great.
Guys. Yeah. Where are you guys based?
Mexico City.
Yeah, Mexico City.
First off, one of my all-time favorite places in the world.
I would disagree.
No, seriously. I went there with a couple of my friends about like 3 years ago, and we were in Polanco.
Mm-hmm.
Polanco.
Is that? I mean, just beautiful.
Polanco.
Yeah, beautiful area. Your guys' natural history museum is out of this world.
Oh yeah, I mean that's. I do agree with that actually.
It is wow. I look forward to meeting you guys in person next time. I'm in Mexico City.
Perfect. We'll
definitely
have you on an IRL podcast, not online. But yeah, it's
awesome.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for the listeners that made it all the way through, for listening so much. It's been an honest and perfect conversation. Follow us on our Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter to get our all news. Right now we're wrapping up season 2. Actually, we're on the verge of going back to school. So by the time you're hearing this, we might be graduating or something. I'm not sure. It's gonna be a weird time machine. But with that said, thank you so much. I think that's it.
Yeah. Creek you later.
Creek you later. Bye bye.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Take care.